Buyout. Broadcast, OTT, worldwide, in perpetuity. I love saying these so dramatically because I'm hoping they make you as nervous as they make me. These usage terms can sometimes be overwhelming, but they are so important to master so you and your agency producing partner can speak the same language.
And if your agency counterpart happens to be, maybe on the green side of producing, or they came over from a different part of the agency, or your agency doesn't have a business department, they're too small, right, to have like a business manager, they may need your assistance in defining their usage terms. Your expertise in this field will help them get what they need without breaking the bank. And sometimes we also find ourselves the one paying the talent. So we have to make sure that our budget is good before we even start casting the talent, right?
That's what we're going to talk about. We're diving into this intricate world of usage terms, demystifying why they matter, and showing you how to navigate this complex landscape. So grab a cocktail, join us, and be sure to stick around to the end because we have some valuable insight on how we can massage these usage rights to help you and your agency or client not overspend. Roll the intro. Welcome to the Producers Happy Hour with your hosts, Sister Christian and Lawrence Lewis.
We're two producers with over 20 years of experience each, chatting over drinks about what it means
and what it takes to be a good producer.
Join us for insightful interviews and informative show topics that will help you get through your toughest jobs,
biggest production challenges,
and most difficult clients. So grab a drink.
You're gonna need it.
And let's get to it.
Because making shit
is hard. Before we start, we have a question for you.
We do, our dear audience. We are interested in putting on a Producers Happy Hour social event. It would be here in Los Angeles, so sorry to everyone else in all the other parts of the world. Maybe we can plan one near you in the future, but our first one, we want to stick close to home, and we want to do it here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so we would love to meet our listeners in person and get to know everybody, talk production, or hell, just have a drink.
Yeah, just get a little boozy. Maybe we could do it at a wine bar, like on a Wednesday or Thursday, 5 to 9, happy hour-ish or something to, people, hopefully you're done with your projects and you can come join us. Something like that. You can bring your partners and your spouses. We just want to hang out and have some fun together.
So if you're down for this, let us know. We'll post on Instagram stories, so please vote. If you get our episode guide, there's a section in there where you can vote, or just email us at producershappyhour@gmail.com and let us know. If enough people want it, we'll make it happen.
That sounds great. So yeah, get back to us. Let us know. Sister, how are you doing?
Oh my God. Oh, I am hot today.
I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit. Sometimes we bank a lot of episodes, so, who knows when we recorded them. Right now, we're kind of doing these pretty much live. We're recording this on Friday, it comes out Tuesday. So current events, oh my God, you're working like crazy. How are you hanging in there?
I mean, I'm on a job right now where we're traveling all over because, spoiler alert, you cannot film in LA. It's too expensive.
Yeah. I was just talking to an EP out of New York, also New York. They're like, we haven't done anything in America for a while. We're in Argentina, Mexico City.
Yep.
It's literally too expensive in Los Angeles to shoot.
Yeah, I've been bidding a lot of things in South America recently.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. I do, but I'm not sure how to combat this because honestly, I feel like we've exhausted the amount of deals that can be made. Nobody's working because of the strikes. So already people need to get the money. So asking for a deal on top of that is rough. It just sucks. So yeah, like right now I've been traveling a ton in order to keep myself afloat.
Yeah, right. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm working the streets. No, I'm good.
How them streets treating you, Lawrence?
No, I've been doing, I don't know. I'm doing fine. I've been doing a lot of experiential projects, a lot of discovery on experiential projects, and a lot of bidding. And yeah, hanging in there.
Well,
but it is definitely, not to brag, but I'm feeling okay. But, it is a really weird world out there. And I've talked to a lot of people that are hoping to get back to work very soon.
The other thing that I'm dealing with somewhat, and I do actually a lot, like I not only do I do advertising with, traditional, agency folks or whatever, I do a lot of client direct stuff, which has, like it just stretches your brain a bit more.
Yeah.
You have to
Oh,
think
yeah.
of a lot of things when, you're not backed by an agency with creatives and business department and agency producers. You actually have to fill those roles sometimes. And that's the other thing I'm doing currently.
Yeah, and turns out you kind of act like the agency in those situations as well.
Yeah, so not only do I line produce, I agency produce on the side, it seems.
There you go.
For the same amount of money, of course.
Well.
Included in my low rate.
Included, right. For one simple daily rate, you get...
You get all of me. Before I spill the beans, what are you drinking?
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you I'm drinking it, but I don't have all the ingredients, so I didn't actually make it. I'm just having an IPA. But I figured this was the perfect drink called A Kiss Is Not a Contract.
I love
thought this was genius.
Yes.
It's a shaken drink. It's a little on the sweeter side. Half ounce of
My
gin,
favorite.
half ounce of honey liqueur or honey syrup if you have it. Couple ounces of fresh pink grapefruit juice, 3/4 ounce passion fruit syrup, 4 ounces of champagne or any sort of sparkling wine will do. And then you can do a sugar rim, but that sounds like a headache to me, so I skip that. I would skip that. But that is A Kiss in a Contract, which I thought was a great cocktail recipe to bring today. What are you drinking?
That sounds delicious, actually. So I'm going to have to get my resident bartender to make that.
Yes.
I'm drinking a Topo Chico hard seltzer, exotic pineapple.
Exotic.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's naturally flavored with other natural flavors.
Are the pineapples certified exotic?
I don't know.
I don't even know what that means.
Nope. But it is gluten-free. So there you go.
Good.
All right, before we get started, to all of our production pros out there, we haven't talked about this in a while, so we need to bring it up again. Lawrence, how many times have you been boned before?
Oh, excuse me, sister. What are you asking?
When you get a script, everything looks manageable, but then somewhere in the pre-production, a huge surprise bomb is dropped in your lap.
Oh my God, you mean like every job these days? God,
get out of my head, Christian.
Exhausting.
Right. And it happens more and more these days. That's why we put together our course, The Art of Script Breakdowns, A Producer's Perspective.
Yes, this is an online learning course, and it teaches you how we, as producers with X amount of years of experience, break down a script, even before our first AD is on board, right? Because we have to. There's so many hidden surprises in there, and by following this method that we have, you can search out those big surprises, uncover them up front, and deal with them all before it's too late.
It's an online video course that's 45 lessons. It adds up to over 2 hours of video content that breaks down our process and will take you from the good producer that you already are to a fantastic producer who can see the landmines ahead of them and successfully navigate around them. And you know what? We also have many more subjects planned.
Oh, yeah. We've got more courses coming, y'all. So you can enroll for this first course that we have on our website, producershappyhour.com/courses. It's only $97. And like Sister said, we've got many more coming. So check it out now. Enroll now. Wake up on some Saturday, make yourself a mimosa, and dive into the course, and you'll be happy you did. All right. So let's define what this is about, because, I started in feature films and we didn't talk a whole lot about usage terms because, everything's work for hire for the film and we're not using a lot of proprietary stuff. This really applies more to commercial advertising, either print or motion. And we're talking about the usage for on-camera actors, voiceovers, musical composers or compositions, artwork, photography, still photography, print photography, anything that's kind of artistically proprietary, like someone's usage, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of what's, going on right now with the writers and the,
Yeah.
the actors on strike right now. It's all about usage. You can't just pay somebody one time to use their likeness forever. You can. It's called in perpetuity.
You can. Yeah.
But
we'll get into
that. Yeah, we just did this is a bit unethical is how, Lawrence and I happen to feel about it.
Right. It's you're licensing your very own image to a thing that's going to generate revenue for, in perpetuity forever.
Yeah.
So that is, you need to be getting a little bit bigger piece of a pie. So basic information here. U.S. copyright law, as they are applied now, artists own all rights to their created images, and they are allowed to sell and transfer these rights to agencies and clients. So even though you think of an actor as an actor, it's like you're licensing their image and their performance for a particular set time and usage. You're kind of renting that, right? You don't own it. So what is usage is defined by several things, but really three: length of time, where, territory, and on what, that's media, right? There are many other things that can factor into these deals, but when you say usage, what are your usage terms? It's usually those three things. So let's start with time period.
So standard time period, I would say, is, a year.
Yeah. I mean, if you like, let's compare it to union. One contract, one session fee covers you for 13 weeks.
Which is a very old way. That's a very old way.
It's a very old way because that goes back to the dinosaur of broadcast TV. So, but they still use it in SAG. Non-union, standard is a year.
Standard's a year. Sometimes you'll see 2 years if it's a little bit more of a buyout, but that's just to cover, in my opinion, it just, like most advertisers, especially these days full of like content just needs to churn out all the time, new and fresh, in order to keep people interested. I feel that a year is more than generous, but sometimes 2 is just to cover because you know you're not going to be reusing that stuff in 2 years. We learned that during COVID for sure.
Exactly. Things move too quickly. Products change too much. So many of the advertisers are tech oriented. That shit gets updated all the time.
All the time.
So, that's something to know and think about and pay attention to, because you're going to pay a little bit more for 2 years or 3 years or whatever. And then we'll get into this a little bit later. Reuse is another option. So instead of paying upfront for 2 years, you build in the right to use it for an additional year for the same money plus 10%.
Exactly. And that requires tracking, though.
That does. Yeah. And who does the tracking?
Yeah, exactly. I'm seeing that go away because, as we alluded to earlier, a lot of the smaller agencies don't have a business department anymore. So they expect the production companies to pay the talent.
Which gets tricky because then if you're talking year upon year and there's a renewal or a reuse, then the production company's got to do work to execute all those payments and things. And who's going to do that? Are they getting paid for that? Probably not. So it's.
Right. And then it falls on teams like me and you who are freelance to say, oh, do you remember a year ago, whatever the deal was? Or do you happen to have the link to the Dropbox of the talent contracts so we can read and see refresh ourselves? And you're like,
exactly.
I turned all this over 2 days after the job. Like,
yeah.
I don't remember.
And I have job amnesia. So once it's done, it's done. And I don't remember.
I'm good.
So we're talking about time. So let's talk about in perpetuity, which is a term that gets thrown around a lot. It's really easy for agencies or clients to just say in perpetuity or assume in perpetuity, like you're going to hire an actor. You've got that piece of film that you can use forever, whenever, and anything. And that's not necessarily true. And if your client or your agency is asking for in perpetuity, it's really something that should be pushed back on, because are they really going to use this commercial forever? Are they really going to use this piece of film? They're sure they can recut it and make it into a commercial for a different product of their own, but that's really kind of gets into really some shady territory.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and call out a big one here because Nickelodeon does it. for their kids. So like when you have an actor and you do something for Nickelodeon and you're a child, they ask the parents to sign a contract that says that they can use that footage for in perpetuity, which means your kid's likeness could be used 20 years from now once they're an adult, for the one-time fee. And I mean, that's no secret. I think everybody out there knows it, but I'm just, like that kind of stuff to me is starting to feel, it may have been what the practice has been for the last 20 years or so when they do non-union talent. But I mean, honestly, it's starting to feel super gross.
It is.
Yeah,
it is
because
super gross.
As an adult, you may not want that that anymore. Your parent may have at the time, and at the time as a 7-year-old, you may like, this is fantastic. I fucking want this. Right. But then 20 years later, you're like, I don't really want them to use it anymore. And you have no repercussions.
This comes up a lot. I do a lot of voiceover work and this comes up a lot. And in a lot of the breakdowns I've been seeing lately, archival and online use in perpetuity. Like organic online, because that shit's going to end up on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's nothing anyone can do about it. Somebody put it up and it's impossible to get taken down. So a lot of agencies and clients are covering themselves saying, okay, we're only going to pay for this ad to be online for 6 months or a year.
Right. But they can't help it.
They can't help it if someone rips it, puts it on YouTube. And they also want to put it on the ad agency wants it on their website, or they might submit it to awards or something. So they're going to ask for in perpetuity for that kind of organic internet usage.
Right. Like I've seen the wording, like, buyout for 1 year. And then after 1 year, the client will not be actively pushing the spot anymore, but it will live archivally online, which is true. Like you cannot scrub the internet of a spot. You can't. So I understand the protection behind that. Yeah. So I understand it. I could see it, in some cases getting abused.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the word buyout, and I want to get into that. So let's move on to rights. This is kind of a broader category, right? But you're either looking for unlimited rights, right? Which is kind of a buyout. Now, buyout's used in a lot of different ways. And I know in commercials, we mean it to be an agreed set of time buyout, right? I want to buy this out for 3 years. I know in voiceover, people get scared of buyout because they think that means in perpetuity. Like I'm buying it out completely forever, and that's not the case. So that unlimited, that would be in perpetuity, or like total buyout. Also, that is be unlimited perpetuity or limited. And sister, you mentioned something maybe before we started recording about session fee. So session fee plus buyout or session fee plus usage. Explain that.
The session fee covers you to arrive on set, and you put that on a time card. It's so you can get covered by workman's comp. That's your day rate. This is the session fee essentially, and then on top of that, usually there's a buyout fee that is a couple grand or something to use the footage for a year, like you were saying earlier. And then after a year, for the non-union world, there's an option to possibly option the second year plus 10%.
Right. Yes.
So altogether, any days that you show up on set or a fitting day, or if you have to travel, is the session fee. And then on top of that, it's a buyout to actually use the footage. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see in some contracts that buyout fee is only paid upon edit. So if you make the edit.
Oh, yeah.
So it could be something where, 20 people are filmed that day, but they only plan on using half of them. Then the half of the people who get in the commercial, quote unquote, get the buyout fee. The other half to show up for their session fee.
Yeah.
But there is some protection in that. So later on, if it's recut again and you're used, you will get paid that. I feel as long as those terms are spelled out in the beginning and you know what you're agreeing to, then I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah. Christian, I just got a calendar for a job, and the timeline is totally crazy. It's so short. Like, how do you stay organized during prep when these timelines are truncated like that?
There is so much to think about and no room for error.
None.
And to be honest, sometimes stuff falls through the cracks. I don't know. Have you ever bolted awake at 2 a.m. and screamed, Humane Society?
Oh, my God.
Or even like, oh, the caterer.
Oh, my God. The director wants fog and I didn't put it on the friggin' permit. It's insane. What gets me through these jobs, though, and even just my daily life, is checklists. I'm obsessed with checklists. That's the only way I can stay organized.
Even though we've been doing this for years, a solid checklist is super useful.
Yeah, even seasoned commercial pilots, like airline pilots who've been doing this for 25 years, use checklists for the most basic things. That's how important they are.
I'd like to think that my job is way more important than a pilot's job, but whatever. So we did a thing and made a new pre-production checklist. This one is built for contemporary filmmaking methods, and, it's also geared towards the way we're expected to work these days.
Yeah, which is crazy fast. So don't let anything slip through the cracks. Get the pre-production checklist. There's a link in our show notes where you can grab it, or you can just find it on our website, producershappyhour.com.
Go get it!
Okay, next one is exclusivity. It's not something commonly talked about in non-union. And in union, it's SAG, which usually is through a SAG paymaster. So we really don't do it too much. But that is the idea of licensing someone's image or photograph or artwork for a specific amount of time, territory, and media exclusively. So meaning if you're doing a Coke commercial, they can't do any other commercial. And you can define that by the industry or the product type or whatever, right? So it could say, we don't want them to do any other soda or pop commercial.
Right. And so your casting director during the casting process will ask you if there are any conflicts, right? In the exclusivity. So if you're doing like Lawrence just said, a toothpaste commercial, normally if it's like Sensodyne, they don't want you doing a Crest commercial like 6 months from now. Or like I've had that happen with, we've booked somebody to do a Bayer aspirin commercial, and then somebody at the agency was Googling the actor that we had wound up booking and saw that they had done a Advil commercial 6 months earlier, and everyone freaked the fuck out. I've never seen anything like it. I was like, holy shit, because you don't want the same actor doing it. Nowadays, though, nobody has money, in my opinion, for exclusivity or conflicts.
It doesn't come up much.
It doesn't. I think that what happens is people Google the select, like once you get to the callback phase of your actors, like they Google them. And if anybody has done prior work like that, then they just exclude them from.
Yeah. Okay. Region, territory. Sometimes it's called territory. Sometimes it's called region. Do you want to break this down, Christian?
The majority of the contracts that I see try to say worldwide, all media worldwide, broadcast and digital, everything, just to cover themselves. But I do, in the non-union world, that's just kind of what you do. I do know that if it's just national, I will, when the casting goes out, I will say that it's just national. But in my opinion, for broadcast, in my opinion, once it hits the internet, once it's digital, it just doesn't matter anymore. So that's why I think everything is kind of trending towards all media worldwide, because it's hard to contain.
It is
a commercial to just broadcast on cable network in the Northwest region.
Exactly. Sometimes, on the internet, it generally is worldwide, but are they paying for that spot to be in specific places in Canada? Right? They might not be. They might only be paying for it to be on specific things in certain areas. That's more applicable to streaming. But typically now it's, if you're not doing SAG work, it's typically worldwide internet rights. It's what we see. Market, this again probably is not so applied, doesn't really apply to us too much because we're usually, is straight to consumers, but you can limit usage down to market. So that's like if we do an industrial, right? Mm-hmm. I've shot some industrial stuff for Microsoft. That stuff is only ever going to be at trade shows or their internal, websites. Sometimes it's like, what did I shoot for Microsoft? It was more of an internal thing about some new department or that they were developing. I can't really say too much about it. So it was trade shows and it was internal and that was it. So the usage rates on those, it was non-union, were pretty small because you're not sending it out to the world and they're not using it to generate income. Okay, the next big category is media. What kind of media is this on? Right. And I know
All media worldwide.
All media worldwide. Known now and to be developed in the future. That was a scary line that was in a lot of contracts in the 90s. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. I feel like this is where the compromising starts to happen in the non-union world. Like all media worldwide, sure, but we can't say in perpetuity because, you have to pick your battles in this one because it is changing. And until, like SAG, I will have to say SAG usually sets the standard.
Yeah.
Of, how, the top shelf of how, people should be treated. And then all the way down to, like I said earlier, Nickelodeon, all media worldwide in perpetuity. We get to own this footage forever. So there's, the in between of that is, okay, we'll agree to all media worldwide, digital, that kind of stuff. But you have to put on some terms, some limits. Yeah.
And you can separate them because a lot of times in some of the non-union stuff I've seen, they were going to pull images from the footage and use them in print. There's print or there's motion, right? Those are kind of the two big categories. And print could be, newspapers, magazines, direct mail, out of home, OOH. When you see OOH, that's out of home. That usually means billboards. POS is point of sale. So like marquees or things next to the register or close to where you're going to buy the thing. Trade show and electronic, I don't really see that anymore, especially electronic. Trade shows, I've done some stuff for trade shows, so I do still see that. Internet, global internet usage, that's a typical that's a typical thing. Broadcast usually means terrestrial television. So, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, and then streaming. Or what I see a lot now is OTT, over the top. And that's been a confusing term for me. Have you heard that one, Christian?
Nope.
OTT, over the top. That's like if you have a box for your TV. Like, is it coming through Roku? Do you have a Roku box? Do you have a
or whatever,
Fire Stick or whatever those things are? Yeah. So that's that. Streaming, obviously Netflix and Hulu. Those are all the different types of media that you're going to kind of be seeing in these contracts.
That brings us to reuse and renewal.
Which we touched on earlier a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's pretty standard, I feel, to if you're offering a buyout to go ahead and protect yourself, or if the client would like to renew for another 6 months or a year to run the same commercial, you have to pay the same buyout fee again with an option of with an increase of 10%.
Yeah.
So there's wordage in there that says with an option to renew, and that's what that usually means.
Because if you don't have it,
I've heard these stories too.
The commercial runs for a year. It's a huge fucking success.
Yeah.
And they want to do it another year.
People are TikToking it. It's fantastic.
And they go back to the actors and say, hey, we want to renew this. We want to do this again for another year. And they say, okay, great. It's double now. Because you didn't pre-negotiate that 10% increase. It would be a dickish move, but, agents are out there to, make money for their clients.
Person. Exactly. For themselves and their client.
And that also may be a good way of getting out of this in perpetuity cycle that some people want because they just don't understand other ways of doing it. Oh, okay. This is kind of fun. I thought we would read some before we get into saving money tips. Read some usage terms, sample usage terms that I found just to kind of break this all down. This could probably be a little old, but I thought this would be fun. So here's one: 1 year unlimited exclusive international advertising and promotional rights and usage in any and all media. Effective date of first use. That's also something we didn't talk about. It's when does that year start? The day of the film shoot, or the day they actually start using it? It's usually the day they start using it.
Yeah. That's another way to protect yourself, because I've been asked to define the year. Some agents will ask you to define the year. You're like, no problem, from the first air date. Yeah. But if you don't have that information, then that gets a little tricky. So having some sort of innocuous language in there of date of first use is protecting everyone.
Yeah. See, it was good we read that one. Do you want to do one?
2 years unlimited exclusive regional, Minnesota, Wisconsin and Illinois, advertising and promotional rights and usage in any and all media effective date first use. Artist retains self-promotion rights forever, as does the agency. Client reserves first option of reuse upon the expiration of current rights.
That's a little too vague. They should have put in...
It reads like stereo instructions.
It does. It does.
It's like, wait a minute.
I told you these are old. But that's interesting. Artists retain self-promotion rights. You might see this in contracts with like a director of photography, right? Like they reserve the right to use it in their reel or on their website or anything like that. Okay, we talked about this a little bit, Christian, but like helping your agency save a little bit of money when they are a little, maybe they're on the greener side. Maybe they don't understand all the intricacies of these usage terms and they just kind of want to be like, well, can we just own it?
Yeah.
Can we just shoot it and own it, not worry about it? We can help them save money because they're going to overpay for that.
Or the other thing that I wanted to mention in this, for instance, is what it's going to do is limit the amount of people who are willing to come in.
Yes.
And that's the important part. Like one of the things that I discuss with the casting director whenever I am hiring non-union talent is, how is this rate? How is this buyout? Like, do you feel that we're going to get the type of actors, the caliber actors that we need for this? And they'll either say yes, or, it'd be really great. Instead of 2-year buyout, we do 1 year and then yes, you're good across the board. And I take that information back to the agency. I feel like whatever you're given sometimes as as the rates and the terms and the usage are actually, you can either push back or ask questions around. Like, do you really need it to be this? Can we limit it? Because it will either save you money, like you said, or bring in a better caliber of talent and make your spot better.
Yes, exactly. And that's like, I used to do a lot of hair commercials. And to get those gorgeous models with that gorgeous hair, they're not going to take, $1,500 for a year. It's going to be $5,000 for a year or more. So those terms, and of course the dollar sign attached to those terms, are going to determine how great your casting session goes. And that is a really great tool, sister, that you to leverage, to use as leverage in those conversations so they understand it's like, okay, we're just not going to get the caliber of people you want for this.
Dude, the last thing you want to hear is from your casting director, especially if you're not working in LA and New York, is like, all right, we'll see what we can get.
Oh.
I'm like, wait a minute, stop. Can we just go back and discuss it? So I can hear it in your voice that you're not confident about this. So tell me what would work. Is it just literally a couple $100 more for a session? Is it that I need to limit instead of in perpetuity?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been told before, like, just put 5 years on it. 5 years will get better people in.
Just put 5 years? Yeah.
And I was like, okay. Like, I think that, the first line of defense in some of these cases is the people who are actually dealing with the actors or the agents is your casting director. And they can explain to you what the norm is, what's going on. Just check in with them. Call Angela Mickey and just be like, hey, girl. What is the average going rate right now for a non-union job? What are you seeing? That way you're informed and you're not offering the lowest thing in the the bottom of the barrel.
She's going to ask you what the terms are, though, so you need to know. And then that's when you start having these conversations about, like, okay, you can go from in perpetuity to like just 5 years, right? Let's just say 5 years, and that would change everything. But then you can even take it a step further and say, okay, let's do 1 year with an option to buy 2 more years for 10% more. And how much is that 10% more? Is that really going to kill you? If you're doing, $3,000, that's $300. So then all of a sudden you've gone, now you're at a 1 year buyout with the option for 2 more years. That covers you for 3 years. And now really think about it. Is that flavor of iced tea that you're marketing, is it really going to be on the shelf for 3 years? Right. Are you going to change it? Is that software you're marketing really going to be the same thing in 3 years?
Well, I mean, you mentioned hair products. I mean, like, they switch that around yearly, So you just think of the shelf life, like you said. Having the frank and open discussion about ethics when it comes to in perpetuity is important. It can save you money, and it can get you a better caliber of talent.
conflicts, exclusivity, if you can get rid of that, that makes things better. And then your mention of breaking out in the non-union world, your session fee from your buyout fee, that's also a great way to save money because, if you have a show or, a commercial project with like 10 actors and they're worried about, oh my God, we got to pay $3,000 to each of these actors, that's $30,000. It's like, no. We can break it out. You only have to pay them the $500 plus OT and fittings and whatever to come on set that day because they may not all make it into the final cut and you don't have to pay them as long as you set that up front. So separating those out gives you a lot of control and leverage.
Yeah. And the last tip that I'll give on this is that all of this needs to be worked out before your casting session.
Yeah. Oh yeah, before.
Yes, before. I know that it's a lot of front loading sometimes and you just received your budget and you're like, shit, how can I, but it's very important because people need to know why they're showing up to audition.
Yeah.
And how they're going to be compensated. So all of this needs to be like one of the first things you should do before casting.
Before that breakdown hits the wire, because changing it after the fact is real hard.
It makes you look like you don't have your shit together.
Yeah, and some casting directors won't do it.
Too. Yeah, they just won't change it. Yeah,
no.
I mean, and if you've ever tried to change a deal with an agent, boy.
Yo, good luck.
Good luck.
All right, well, I think this was a really great show. Thank you for running this all down with me, Christian.
Oh yeah, I mean, this one's been weighing on me for a while because I like doing a lot of streaming or client direct or promos, that type of stuff that the agencies are starting to get cut out. They just are.
Oh yeah.
And business departments are the first to go because then agency producers are now like handling it more and more. So I'm finding myself in this unique situation of teaching people how to pay talent.
This isn't a slight, but a lot of ad agencies are downsizing and they're taking people from other departments, like you said, and like, go learn this, go figure it out. And you need to be the expert and help them through. Otherwise,
you're the one who has to clean it up. Yeah. I'll tell you, like, if there's a problem with any of it, you're going to get the call in 6 months. You're going to you'll be the one dealing with the agent on the shoot day. You're the one changing the contract, rewording it. You're doing all the work. So it is, incumbent upon you to do the pre-work and educate.
Yeah. Educate. As always, it's all about education. Go figure.
I know, like we just can't get away from it.
No.
Somebody just help me. It's always up and everybody has the same knowledge. You're like, what?
Oh, hey, we're all on the same page. It's great.
We can be done by 4. I love it.
Nice. All right, Christian, how do people get a hold of you if they want you?
SisterChristianProduces.com. And Lawrence, if they want you, how do they get you?
Oh, for all this usage talk, let's talk about voiceover usage. voiceoflawrence.com or producing.lawrencetLewis.com.
Sexy.
Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Producers Happy Hour is brought to you with the help of the handsome Christopher Daniels,
who is a design and branding specialist,
and Brendan Russell at podlad.com, who is our fabulous editor.
If you enjoy this podcast and want to dive deeper, subscribe to our listeners' newsletter. Simply go to producershappyhour.com to sign up.
Thanks for listening, and remember,
enjoy happy hour while you can.
Because making shit is hard.